The Summer I Turned Pretty is back with episode 5, and what an interesting episode this was. It was almost like a trip down memory lane and a step into an alternate universe where Belly was marrying Conrad instead of Jeremiah. At least, that's what Conrad wanted to think. All I can say is they just seem so much more suited than what Belly and Jeremiah do, but I am Team Conrad, so I'm gonna say that. With the episode being called Last Dance, this was a play on the fact that Belly and Jeremiah had chosen their first dance song. And this was the last opportunity that Conrad was probably going to get to be with Belly in the intimate way that they were with just the two of them. This was their last dance. With it seeming like love was blossoming even more on Conrad's side, and Stephen and Denise actually being kind to each other. There's something going on between the both of them for sure. So with that, let's dive into this week's episode and break down all that there was to take away from it. Here is The Summer I Turned Pretty Season 3 Episode 5 Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Belly and Conrad. Within this episode, it was all about us hearing the inner monologue of Conrad rather than Belly, which was perfectly set up at the end of the previous episode when we heard him say, "What have I done?" when he gave her a hug, ultimately bringing him the closest that he'd been to her in years. The episode opened up with the song These Arms of Mine by Otis Redding, and it was the perfect choice because that's where Belly was, inside of those arms of his, and he was loving every second of it, but feeling guilty at the same time. For Belly, the weekend was all about planning her wedding, spending it with Taylor and Jeremiah and them knuckling down on getting it planned. But with Taylor cancelling due to her mother's salon inspection and Jeremiah getting caught up at work, it left Belly on her own with Conrad, and she was made to feel isolated even more and have that yearning for her mother to be there. This is because it should have been something that they should have been doing together, planning her wedding. Conrad has been trying his hardest to stay clear of Belly, even more so now due to the fact that she's marrying his brother. But when he saw her struggling, he couldn't stand by and watch her. So he turned around and leaned back into that hero complex that he has and the fact that he always wants to fix things for her, because obviously he's still deeply in love with her. There were moments in this episode where Conrad was mistaken to be the groom by the employees of the stores that they were going into, and there was also a moment where he himself slipped and felt like he was getting married to Belly, as he was shopping with her just like how Jer was supposed to. The biggest tell came though when Belly was talking about the wedding, and in response within his mind he kept saying, "Don't," and "don't do it," reinforcing even more just how much he was in love with her and how he knew that he was losing the love of his life. When the both of them returned to the house, they cooked up a meal, drank wine, and reminisced over the past. They were acting like a mature couple, and it's just something that I don't see with Belly and Jeremiah. I even feel like Belly felt something when Conrad wiped that peach juice off of her face with his shirt. This was Conrad's episode as we heard his inner monologue, and it was painful seeing just how much he didn't want the both of them to get married. However, we saw that the one thing that was preventing him from telling the truth was the promise that he made to his mother on her deathbed. He promised that he'd always look out for and take care of Jeremiah because she felt as though Jeremiah was lucky to have him as an older brother. So that's why when Belly announced to Conrad that Jeremiah and herself were together in season 2, he said that it was fine, because he didn't want to let his mother down despite the fact that he was hurting inside. What I will say with Belly though is that she's feeling the weight of doing this wedding on her own without the people closest to her, and Conrad was that piece of comfort for her in the episode. She may not have expressed that she was in love with Conrad, but I think we all know that there are some feelings that are still inside that she has towards him, and I believe that we did actually see a slight crack in Belly and Jeremiah, albeit subtle, but I'll get onto that. Conrad finished the episode by saying that Belly could get all that she wanted from Jeremiah, and that it was time for him to walk away. So I wonder if he's now going to go back to California and choose to not be at the wedding and be the best man, because it just might hurt too much for him. Jeremiah. Jeremiah actually stepped up and wasn't just whining about the wedding in this episode. He took on a piece of work that his father gave to Denise and Stephen and managed to find an error in the numbers which showed that the client was lying to them. So his father was proud of him for the first time in this season. This was the reason why Jeremiah didn't go to the house in Cousins immediately and was stuck working. With his father being proud of him, he then got on board with the wedding and said how he'd like to pay for it and have it take place at the club. Personally, I don't really think that Jeremiah just completing one task warranted a change in heart, but for the purpose of the show, let's just look past it. When Jeremiah returned to the house, he mentioned it to Belly, and she really wasn't happy with the idea of the wedding being entirely paid for, it needing to take place at the club so that people that work for his father and also clients could attend, and also that she wasn't going to be planning on her own anymore and with the people that mattered to her, but somebody who worked for his father. Jeremiah pushing this onto her kind of made me think back to when she said that she wasn't going to be going to Paris anymore, and he said that he was glad that she wasn't. Whilst Belly said that she didn't mind, I actually think the wedding planning is going to get taken out of her hands now, and the wedding will become something that she doesn't recognize nor want to be a part of. But Jeremiah will most likely be going along with it because it's going to be what's getting him his father's approval, something that he's never truly had before. So I think it's only a matter of time until something goes wrong between Belly and Jeremiah. Belly spent the entire episode planning her wedding with Conrad. It was personal, intimate, and there was something special about it. Now having staff and people that she doesn't know involved for Jeremiah, I don't think she's going to see it the same way. Stephen and Denise. Now, I feel like I predicted this happening from the very first episode. It was always clear to see that both of these two characters would have some kind of romantic spark. There was that kind of teasing, flirting that was going on between them, that love-hate type relationship, and with them both getting stuck on a train that was delayed in going to New York, we saw that their connection only grew deeper as the journey went on. The both of them, even walking past Taylor at the start, symbolized that too. Stephen mentioned how he was going to New York because he was looking for an out of the firm, because after almost dying in a car accident, he didn't want to do something that he felt was lacking purpose and wasn't serving him. And that was something that Denise respected. Whilst both of these characters are growing closer, I do still think that Taylor and Stephen will be the endgame for each other. I just can't see a world where he ends up permanently with Denise and Taylor being left with nobody. At the moment, Taylor deserves happiness with everything that she's juggling with her mother, and I feel Stephen is the only person that'll be able to give her that. My review of the episode. I've got mixed feelings on this episode, to be honest. Whilst it was interesting seeing Conrad and Belly together in a way that we've not seen them for in such a long time, I did find some of it a bit ridiculous, especially the whole Peach situation. What I would say this episode made extremely clear though was that Conrad was a much better match for Belly, just simply with the levels of maturity that he has and the fact that he's there for her in ways that I just don't think Jeremiah could ever be. It's just the lack of being upfront and the commitment which let him down in the past, but now he's a changed man, so I think he just has to be honest. The runtime of this episode was a bit too long for my liking. I just don't think we needed over an hour for this story to be told. They could have easily shaved 10 minutes off this runtime to make it a bit more concise and to the point. An element of this episode that I absolutely loved was the use of music to match what was happening on screen. For example, the use of Otis Redding, Fleetwood Mac, and also James Blake. They just suited the scene so well with the lyrics, and it allowed the tone of the scene to be truly felt. When watching this show, I do often question some of the acting, but I think Christopher Briney as Conrad delivered the strongest performance in the episode. His character drew me in with how he was feeling, and then threw me right back out with the heartbreak that he was going through at the end. You could feel the pain that he was in, and that was the entire point of what this episode was. This was his last dance. We're almost at the halfway point of the final season, and there are still so many different directions that I feel this season could go in. I'm kind of hoping that we're going to get a mid-season trailer that'll tease everything that's coming up in the final few episodes, but I think that could be wishful thinking. So, there you have it. The Summer I Turned Pretty Season 3, Episode 5, Ending Explained.